Bronco Nation, to my game review for Boise State versus UCLA. I sincerely apologize that this review is out so late. Hasn't happened all this season, but a disappointing, frustrating end to the season for Boise State fans in the bowl loss by Boise State versus UCLA. Got even more frustrating for me personally when I did an hour and 10-minute review of the game, my most in-depth review of the entire season, went almost drive by drive, offensively and defensively, almost play by play in some situations. And when I went to check the video before uploading, I noticed that somehow when I was setting up my set here, I had accidentally turned on the echo effect on my mic, and it sounded like I was broadcasting from a large cavernous cave. It would have been, you would not have been able to listen to it, unlistenable for an hour and 10 minutes to do that. I tried so many different ways to get to adjust the audio to fix it, but I'm still not that technically experienced in that, and the editing software that I had was not up to the task, and eventually, after basically an entire day of trying to fix it, I've decided to reshoot it. So I sincerely apologize. It was already going to be coming out about a day late anyway. Now it's coming out a couple of days late. But the space is good. The space is good. Like I said in the first attempt at this video, when it was only 24 hours, the space to reset, to take this loss into the bigger perspective, and to look at what this loss means for Boise State in 2024, as well as what it means for what this team accomplished in 2023, was important. Now, this video, I'm not doing the hour and 10 video that I did, and I think this is going to be better anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to do more of an overall look at the game, offensively, defensively, special teams, grade each of those units, and how Boise State performed against my three keys to the game, and look at how this game impacts 2024. What this tells us in each of these units about 2024. Should fans be concerned? What do fans have to look forward to? Is there a positive spin to this loss? Because right now fans are kind of freaking out. I mean, you look on social media, it's all about how we need to go get a quarterback in the transfer portal right now. I mean, we needed to get it yesterday is what everyone's saying, and they're freaking out. They're losing their minds. They're talking about us going 8-5 again next season, about how this team is on a downward slide. And with this fan base, that's what we do. Something happens that's good, the fan base is excited. They react. Oh, suddenly Ed Diablo should keep his job because they won a game. And then they lose a game. Oh, he should be fired. And it's back and forth, and it's this constant swing of emotions within the moment. So like I said, a couple of days to take a look at this loss, to let the emotions settle down and look at it analytically, I think is good. So we're going to get into the video today. We're going to look at the offense first. And like I said, defense, special teams, three keys to the game, and how this impacts Boise State. I want to know your thoughts, your comments. You've had a couple days to think about them. Put your thoughts and comments in the comment section of the video, and I want to hear what you think about this team, about the 2024 season, about anything we talk about in the video, and about what this loss means for Boise State coming into next season. So, starting the video off here, 22-35 point loss for Boise State, but a tale of two halves, both offensively and defensively. So starting off offensively for Boise State, first half was an incredible performance. 126 yards rushing against a team that was one of the top defenses in the country. It only allowed 69.6 yards rushing per game coming into this matchup. Boise State put up 202 total yards of offense, 76 yards of passing, which is a little misleading because 45 yards of that came on one incredible run by Ashton Jeanty. And it really was a true run in that sense because it was a screen pass well behind the line of scrimmage. He got hit 4 or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage because it was not blocked well, and he still turned it into a big gain for Boise State. So the passing yards are a little bit misleading. It was not a hugely successful passing first half for Boise State. It was not terrible. The first drive was really, really good, and they did a great job of getting CJ settled down, giving him some short pass options that Boise State could then pick up into first downs and allowing him to settle into the game before turning it over to the running backs. Fantastic game plan in the first half. For Boise State, this was what you needed to do to win this game. This was one of my keys to the game, to kind of do a little bit of a prequel of that. This was one of my keys to the game for Boise State, was run the ball. And they came into this game doing that. After the first drive, the scripted drive, to let everybody know that, hey, this team can hang with this UCLA defense. And not just that they're going to be efficient against you, and that this true freshman quarterback is going to settle down and have a chance to beat you with his arm if he needs to, but we're going to rely on the running game. That's what that first drive told us. It told us that C.J. Taylor was going to make smart decisions. He had a couple times where he could have gone deep. He chose the check down, gave him some short passes that he was able to complete in good rhythm and good timing with his receivers. He came into this game hot, and that first drive allowed him to build that momentum. And then after that, it put UCLA on their heels. They were not ready the rest of that first half because of how Boise State started this game. Come out in the second half, and they start second drive, and they just start establishing the run. And from that point on, UCLA had no answer for the combination of Ashton Jeanty and George Holani. This offensive line for Boise State, one of the weakest units from 2019 to 2022, has turned itself completely around. Coming into the season, they were one of the major question marks for this team. Now, at the end of the season, they are one of the true strengths of this unit, of this offense overall. And they were dominating in the first half against this UCLA defense. Yes, the running backs were playing inspired. Ashton Jeanty, 74 yards in the first half. George Holani, also a major contributor in the first half, a huge game overall. A lot of that helped out by a big 66-yard touchdown in the second half, but he was having a massive performance in the first half as well. Like I said, that 45-yard run off of the screen pass. He was also picking up big yards in the running game as well. Both of these backs were untackleable, and it was because they did have a couple broken tackles in the backfield, but for the most part, they were being able to get past that first line, to get a step, couple of yards moving forward to build their momentum and energy, especially Ashton Jeanty. Once he got that first couple of steps, he was unstoppable. He could not be tackled. And that was part of Boise State's game plan coming into this one. They had shirts that said Ashton Jeanty 2024 Heisman campaign because they wanted the spotlight to be on him. Obviously, George Holani as well. But Ashton Jeanty, he was the media focal point for this game for Boise State. He was the big name, the big star name, the one of the best running backs in the country that chose to come back to Boise State. He was the focus, and Boise State capitalized on that. He had a huge first half, averaged over 6 yards per carry. His 2024 Heisman campaign launched successfully in this game, and I cannot wait to see what Boise State does to continue to build that media presence around Ashton Jeanty as he fulfills the visions of Boise State fans, what they had for him from the moment he stepped on campus. From the moment he has stepped on campus, everyone's been comparing him to Doug Martin or Jay Ajayi or any of these great Boise State backs from our past. They have been comparing Ashton Jeanty to that, and he is living up to those moments. He has gotten stronger and stronger as each season has progressed, coming into his third season now for next year, for 2024. He's gotten stronger and stronger as each season progressed, and he still looks like he is picking up speed. The way he played in this game, he's had a great season. He's had one of the best seasons of any running backs in the country. But the way that he played in this game against the toughest defense he has faced all year, he looked even better than he has at any point this season. And so the fact that he could have an even more explosive performance next year than he did this season should absolutely terrify the Mountain West, should absolutely terrify anybody that's on their schedule. Oregon, pseudo Mountain West teams like Oregon State and Washington State for next year. But it should give fans a lot of hope coming into next year. This first half for Boise State should inspire the fan base, should give Boise State fans hope for what next year could be, because it was a perfect first half. Now, I will modify that. It wasn't completely perfect. Boise State scored on 4 drives. They had 4 drives in the first half. They scored on every one of them. Unfortunately, at the end of the first half, they only had 16 points because 3 of their drives, first 3 drives, ended in field goals. They were giving up a lot of yards between the 20s, UCLA was, but they were stiffening up when they got inside their 40, inside of field goal range, inside their red zone. Boise State had 2 drives stall out inside the red zone. A combination of UCLA blowing their back and a little bit of a lack of creativity in the red zone, just attempting to kind of pound the ball down, which was working between the 20s. But once you get inside the red zone, you've got to get a little bit more creative than that because the defense is now compacted. You don't have as much space, as much of an opportunity to get to that second, to that third level. And so Boise State there, inside the red zone, like second drive for Boise State, run, near interception, field goal. Third drive for Boise State, again, running up the middle, a missed face mask call on Ashton Jeanty. I mean, it was an obvious face mask, should have been a first down, put them inside the 15. Not called, have to go with a field goal attempt again. Now, Boise State did punch it in on the 4th drive. On the 4th drive, they scored only the 4th rushing touchdown that UCLA has allowed all season on the Clydesdale package, and that was set up by a deep throw to Austin Bolt that gave Boise State field position with a penalty flag, and then a combination of George Kalani and Ashton Jeanty getting the ball into the end zone with their legs. This is what Boise State needed to do. That drive showed what Boise State needed to do. Is what I'd already written down as a note after drive 3 had stalled out with an attempted screen pass that ended up in a negative 4-yard loss. I said that Boise State needed to start throwing the ball deep, because what they were doing in this game made sense. Run the ball. Yes, that's what you want to do. You knew that's where your focal point was going to be. That's how you are going to win this game, is establishing the run behind this offensive line and the dynamic duo of George Kalani and Ashton Jeanty, who are unstoppable against any defense. That's what you need to do. However, if you're going to throw the ball, and even if you're focusing on the run game, you still need to have the defense thinking about the possibility that these wide receivers that are lining outside against them could potentially be a deep threat, could potentially break over the top if you cheat up too close. Are you going to cause the defense to adjust their coverage significantly and drop back into a coverage for it? No. But you're going to at least keep the secondary, and not necessarily the secondary, but at least the safeties from cheating up to being inside 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And so for Boise State, third drive, attempted screen pass to I believe it was Kalani. Riley Smith. He attempted a tight end screen pass. Did that twice in this game. Tight end screen pass to Riley Smith. Doesn't go anywhere. Negative 4 yards, negative 5-yard loss there. And it's because the defense is opted for that play. They are already bringing everybody close to the line of scrimmage. They're already trying to stop the running game. They know that your quarterback's not a run threat, but they know the running backs are, and they're trying to stop that running game. So when you throw that screen pass, they've already got their secondary, while their defensive line might be rushing up to try and get into the running back, their secondary players are already standing where the screen pass is going to be completed, and that's what we saw, that negative yards pass. So next drive, come out, deep pass attempt, Austin Bolt. That's what Boise State needed to do in this game. Even if it's an incompletion, and I said this in my game preview, even if it's an incompletion, even if it's thrown completely out of bounds, like it's not even catchable, even if that is the case, the fact that you are showing you are willing to go with a throw like that means the secondary is going to have to back off of it. So they throw the pass to Austin Bolt, not completed, pass interference. You're going to, again, and maybe they'll pick up a pass interference call. At the very worst case scenario, you don't get any yards, but you force the secondary to back off a little bit. Best case scenario, it's caught, or there's a pass interference call, and that's what we saw. Set Boise State up for a touchdown. Overall, very impressive first half performance. Not finishing drives, that would come back to haunt Boise State later, but they were finishing them with points, just not the way they needed to finish with touchdowns. They end the first half dominantly. 16-7, we'll talk about the defense in a little bit here, but 16-7, 126 yards of rushing, 76 yards passing, 202 total yards of offense against a UCLA defense that has no answer for this Boise State team. Yeah, they're stiffening up inside of the red zone, but Boise State's still scoring on them, and they've just finished a drive to end the half with a touchdown. So you're not even stopping them inside the red zone anymore. That rushing game is heating up. Boise State looks like they're going to have one of the most dominant rushing performances they've had this entire season against one of the best rushing defenses they faced this entire season. That's where we're sitting at the half. Now, as I'm sitting there waiting for the halftime to end and for Boise State to come back, I'm thinking, please do not do the logical thing. And I do not fault the coaching staff for doing the logical thing. But the problem is that the coaching staff did what was the obvious and logical thing, and it was the 100% wrong decision. Because the logical thing, if you have only run the ball, I mean, it really has been a one-sided offense for Boise State. They're one-dimensional. It's all on the ground. The logical thing, if you've only been running the ball, in the second half, you're thinking about adjustments. It's all a chess game, right? I mean, that's the coaching side of it. It's all the chess elements. And you know that the other team is going to be adjusting like crazy to try and stop you. And so you want to play off that game. It's like from the Princess Bride, from the Princess Bride, where they're doing the poison switch, and they're talking about, oh, I know that you know that, you know that I know this. So you know that the other team is going to try to stop you on the ground, and they're going to make adjustments. And you're probably right now shocked right now. You have confidence in your offense. You have confidence in these incredible, explosive running backs for this much improved offensive line. But to have a performance like that should shock everybody. It shocked the fans. It shocked the announcers. Gronk was shocked. I mean, everybody was shocked. I'm sure the coaching staff was going, there's no way we're able to repeat that exactly like that in the second half. So what you do is you think, I need to hit them with a pass. They're not going to see it coming. We've barely thrown the ball at all. Besides that first drive and one long screen pass, it's been runs almost every single play. It's worked great, but they're going to be able to stop us. We need to go to the air. That's what they're going to think. And I was saying, please do not do that. Because the simple fact is, you don't have a passing game. It doesn't matter if that's the right decision, if it's the logical decision. In this case, it's the wrong one because you don't have that as an option. It shouldn't be on the table. You have a young, inexperienced, inconsistent wide receiver group. Your seniors are injured. Cobbs is out. Latrell Cable's been out for the whole season. Austin Bolt, probably one of your most dynamic receivers, is not 100% right now. Prince Strawn has some great flash, but he's still been a little inconsistent on his route running. Billy Bowens has not been consistent all season. You don't have a consistent wide receiver room, and you have a true freshman quarterback who has not thrown a pass this year. He's had a couple warm-up throws in the first half, but coming in the second half, it's going to be a little bit of a rusty reset for him because, again, he's a young, inexperienced quarterback. He doesn't have that chemistry with these guys to build on. Austin Bolt's been injured, so he doesn't have a ton of chemistry with him, even though they've both been on the practice squad together. You don't have a quarterback to go to. You don't have a consistent prove you can beat them wide receiver room, and you are dominating in the run game. So what you should do is take the logical option off the table, ignore it, and beat them with the proven weapon that you know works until they prove they can stop you. And if you get into desperation, then you can throw. But don't do that until you have to. They Washingtoned themselves. Boise State comes out in the second half, and they start throwing the ball, just like they did versus Washington. We had this dynamic, explosive, amazing running game. We thought it was going to be what we saw in the last end of the season, this amazing, incredible rushing attack with a rushing quarterback and all of that. And Boise State instead comes into Washington with a Tim Plow air raid look. I mean, that's what it looked like. And Boise State lost that game because they weren't going to win it through the air, and they took away their ability to fight with the main weapon that they have. In the second half, UCLA did not beat Boise State in the second half. Boise State just stopped beating UCLA. Boise State stopped running the offense that was beating UCLA. In the second half, Boise State had 3 drives in a row where either on the first play or if they completed a first down on the first play of the second first down series, so within the first 2 series of 3 straight drives, they threw the ball. And the result of those 3 drives on that first pass, incompletion, negative 4-yard loss, incompletion. This offense, you got to almost look at it like an academy team, like Army or Air Force or something. They're not set up to overcome lost yardage. You have to get positive yards and keep yourself ahead of the sticks on every single play. And the running game was still working. Ashton Jenney, second and 10. All right, we give the ball to Ashton Jenney. He sets us up for 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. He's still plowing ahead. George Holani doing the same thing. The running game is still working, but now you're putting yourself into obvious passing scenarios on 3rd downs, or you're running it outside for some reason, trying to be a little crafty and creative versus just pounding it up the middle and beating them the way you have the entire game. Boise State took themselves out of this game. Boise State lost this game because the defense did not make the adjustments they needed to, and the offense for UCLA did. So the offense for UCLA was picking up steam. Regardless of what the Boise State offense was going to do in this game in the second half, the UCLA defense made incredible adjustments. So Boise State's offense needed to come back out, steal the momentum back after the first drive touchdown by UCLA. They needed to come back, establish a nice, long, consistent, burn-you-out running drive to get that momentum back in Boise State's corner, give their defense a little time to rest, and then come back out on the field. And after the second touchdown, they really needed to. I mean, I said after drive number 2, this kind of starts to feel like the game. And I believe I tweeted out after drive 3. I was like, the game is now on the line after drive number 3. You're 3 drives into the second half, and suddenly the game is away from you. After 2 drives, UCLA had taken the lead because Boise State only gotten field goals in the first half. And Boise State, at a certain point, was forced into through desperation, was forced to pass the ball, and you saw that incredible rushing attack die on the wayside for Boise State. Ashton Jeanty, 74 yards rushing in the first half, finishes the game with 85 yards of rushing, only 11 yards rushing in the second half, and ends up averaging 5 yards a carry instead of 6.2. But he was still in this game unstoppable. He just wasn't being given the ball and the opportunity in the second half because Boise State's offensive scheme took that opportunity away from him. CJ Tiller now put in a spot where he's the offense, where he is the expected guy that he's got to now go and complete throws, and the UCLA defense, they gave him those throws on that first drive. They did not give him those throws after that point. Even in the first half, we were seeing those screen passes being taken away. Now, Boise State is still going to those. They're not stretching the field. They're not attempting to push the secondary back. Their entire playbook has pulled them up to the line of scrimmage, and the second half playbook is all about short passing attempts, trying to repeat what they did on the first drive, which was a great play call decision for the first drive, and only the first drive. Those short passes, UCLA was not expecting them. They were focused on the run. They weren't thinking about that. They still had the idea that maybe the deep pass could be completed, and so they were allowing that underneath stuff. After the first drive, those dried up. Those went away. Even the long pass to George Holani was not open. I mean, George Holani turned that into a 45-yard run, but even that was covered well by UCLA. George Holani just does what George Holani does because he's a career historic back for Boise State that is going to be missed. An incredible career, George. Thank you so much for everything you've done for this program. But in the second half, Boise State beats themselves. Boise State stops doing what they should have done to win this game, and now CJ Tiller, and I want to emphasize this for the fan base, for anybody that is throwing any kind of criticism or blame for this loss on CJ Tiller, you did not watch the same game that I did. You did not watch the same game that I did because he played great in the first half when he was being asked to be a game manager. He did more than what a true freshman quarterback with zero experience should be expected to do in a bowl game versus a Power 5 team that's one of the best defenses Boise State has faced all season. One of the best defenses Boise State has faced in years. What he did in the first half in his game management, feeding the backs, not making any horrible mistakes. He had a couple of bad mistakes that were not capitalized on. He had a couple of near interceptions in the first half. I will give you that. But they weren't capitalized on, and he runs through the first half, and Boise State's offense is picking up speed. The second half turns around. The offensive play calling killed Boise State's offense, not CJ Tiller. This is not CJ Tiller's fault that Boise State lost this game. Of course, he's going to throw an interception in the second half when there's no offense for Boise State and he's being forced in desperation mode, feeling like he has to throw this ball. And when he's being told he has to throw this ball because the play call is throw the pass on first down, and now suddenly you're set up in second and long, or you're set up in a third and short situation, and for some reason you've started to lose faith in your rushing game, you're being asked to throw the ball. He doesn't have the chemistry with the receivers. This is not his fault that Boise State did this. The fact that he performed as well as he did in the first half, the fact that he had as many great moments in the second half, even if it was not consistent, for me, says a lot about this young man. Says that, well, I don't think he's, the next great Boise State quarterback right now. I think he has the potential to be a solid backup for Boise State next season. That Boise State, with Maddox Madsen coming back, he should be 100%. It's just an MCL tear, folks. It's not an ACL. It's been confirmed. His brother says it's not an ACL. It's not an ACL tear. It's just an MCL tear, folks. Coming back next year with Maddox Madsen at quarterback, with Ashton Jeanty at running back, with a much deeper wide receiver room, with Latrell Caples coming back. Hopefully an offensive line. We're going to lose some guys, but hopefully an offensive line that continues to improve. With that offense next season, and then with CJ Tiller as the backup behind Maddox Madsen, I have strong confidence in that offensive role. And if he is able to perform with the maturity that he did in-game and post-game, his post-game thoughts on Twitter saying, hey, I tried, I did my best. I mean, he did. I mean, he's not moping around. He's not hiding. He came out and he had a very, very good game for a true freshman. And if that is what he's putting on the field as a true freshman, in the most high-pressure environment that you can put a true freshman in that moment, to come out and play the way he did, and to have a full offseason to prepare for next year and come into next season with experience and with some confidence after what he was able to do in this game, knowing that, hey, he took some hits and now he knows what a real game feels like, that is going to be a quarterback that we can depend on as a backup for next season. So this game does not make me lose faith or confidence in CJ Tiller. What did he prove? He proved he's not experienced. He proved he's not, Taylor Green. Who was expecting him to come in and be Taylor Green in this game? Who is expecting him to be any level close to Taylor Green or Max Matson or anybody else in this offense, if you did, you were wildly optimistic about his performance in this matchup and probably riding on some a little bit of that fan emotion versus really looking at this situation critically. And so CJ Tiller came out second half, it doesn't go well. Interception. He throws a pass, negative 4-yard loss, and a screen to Ashton Jeanty that he shouldn't have thrown. It wasn't open, but again, he just completed in the first half a not open screen pass that went for 45 yards. So again, game environment and game time decision. It's a lot easier to make these decisions when you're sitting on the couch watching the game than you are in the moment, and you've got a Pac-12 UCLA defense bearing down on you, about to slam you to the ground. It's pretty easy sitting back to watch and make those decisions. It's a lot harder in the game, especially inexperienced, put in a position he should not have. Negative 4-yard loss on a screen pass to Matt Lauder, again using the tight ends in the screen game versus maybe pushing them into that flat mid-range game for Boise State, trying to put them as Matt Lauder is a great receiving tight end for Boise State, and you sneak him out of the blocking scheme into not into a screen pass, because tight ends, they're not the fastest guys on the field, but you put him out in a route position, he's a great route runner. I think that Smith and Lauder could have had a bigger role in the passing game for Boise State if they hadn't been forced into this. If their two opportunities hadn't been in screen options that probably weren't going to work against this team. UCLA had the screen pretty much locked down all game. Boise State dynamic running backs were just able to take advantage of them a little bit in this one. So overall, the game starts to get away from the offense. I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I've already talked a little bit. But, the false starts start pounding up the penalties. There's desperation, there's pressure. You can feel the game slipping away. You're getting frustrated. And that starts to show. Boise State's now using at false starts are putting them in bad situations. Even with that, CJ Tiller is still able to get the team out of some of those. A 3rd and 13, he throws a perfect pass to Prince Strawn. A perfect throw to him between 3 defenders. Unfortunately, it was either the next pass or just a little bit later on that drive, he throws an interception. So he compiles his best throw of the game, followed by his worst throw of the game for an interception. And again, it's a true freshman making true freshman mistakes. But overall, the offense shouldn't have been in that position, because what we saw in the second half is that Boise State could still run on them. George Holani breaks free for a 66-yard touchdown run on a defense that hasn't given up. They're still playing. The game is still within reaching distance at that point. Boise State scores, and now they are only down 2 scores, about 5 minutes left. This was not a UCLA defense that had given up. They were still playing. Their starters were still out there, and Boise State puts out a 66-yard run with George Holani in the second half. And when Boise State was running the ball, they were having success. Not every time, but most of the time they were having success. It was not the players, it was not the personnel, it was not the 1v1s offensively for Boise State that lost this game in the second half. It was the decision making. Now, I'm not calling for Bush Hampton to be fired. I'm not blasting the coaching staff here. I understand why they made this decision, but I think that it was the decision of a young coaching staff. Bush Hampton is his first year as offensive coordinator for Boise State, and Spencer Danielson as the brand new head coach of Boise State. It was a young head coaching staff that made a decision, maybe showed a little more confidence in their players than they should have, and decided to go with the wrong game plan in the second half. The wrong adjustments. Football is all about adjustments, and once you get headed in one direction, it's really hard to turn foot and get back in step. And when you start to lose momentum, because football is not just adjustments, especially bowl games especially are all about momentum. Who has it? Boise State in the first half had the momentum and they were rolling. UCLA had no answer. UCLA comes out in the second half, they established momentum. That's why that first drive for Boise State was critical. The entire game hung in the balance on that first drive, and they were unable to get it done. They added to the momentum, and it became a steamroll that they couldn't stop for Boise State in this one. And so, for Boise State, overall, offensively, A minus performance if you say they should have had some touchdowns where those field goals ended up. A performance in the first half. F performance in the second half. Overall, probably throws them somewhere at a C+ rating on this. But individually for performance for these players, George Holani had one of his best games, 183 combined yards between his rushing and receiving yards. Ashton Jeanty averages over 5 yards a carry. Prince Strawn has some really nice catches. And CJ Tiller, the true freshman, throws 12 of 21 for 117 yards and an interception. Not a incredible, going to show up in their record books performance, but also one that in the situation they had, I didn't expect him to throw for over 100 yards in this game. So to come into this game and to have the performance that he did with the grander picture of this game overall, I was very, very proud of what he and his team were able to do, especially in the first half. But to keep fighting throughout it and to keep this game within a couple of scores, this was a very, I'm not going to say impressive, but I am going to say this should give the fan base a little bit of hope and a little bit of a bigger perspective about what this quarterback could be for Boise State with the development that's going to come over the offseason. And while I'm not saying we shouldn't go to the transfer portal for a quarterback, we definitely do need to be looking at that. But it shouldn't be from this position of desperation, like the team is going to be, anchorless next year if they don't get a quarterback in the transfer portal. I would love for Boise State to go get one. I think that they need to. I think there are some great options out there. But it shouldn't be this desperation mode where you go grab anybody because you feel like you have nobody on this roster right now. CJ Tiller showed he can be a great backup for Boise State and potentially build himself into a starter. Maddox Madsen coming back, I have 100% confidence in him. Bush Hamdan knows how to call an offense for Maddox Madsen. The offense that he was calling for most of the season this year was a Maddox Madsen offense. And if he'd been given the reins 100% with that offensive scheme, I think we would have seen a Boise State performance record-wise that was much better than it ended up being. So right now for Boise State, offensively, fans should not be freaking out. In fact, if anything, this offensive performance should give you hope and confidence. Now, the question mark is going to be this coaching staff. Of course, they're going to be the question mark. They're a brand new young coaching staff. Who knows what they're going to look like next year as far as their decision-making and the chemistry that they build with this team. But their performance, what they were able to do to turn this team around the last 3 games of the season, that's the bigger perspective you should be equating this game with. This is not a coaching staff that just lost 1 game. This is a coaching staff that a team that was headed not that they weren't just out of the Mountain West Championship game, but they were headed for not even getting to bowl eligibility, finished the season 3 out of 4. They were 3-4 to end the year against top competition in the Mountain West, won their conference, and were very close to beating a good Pac-12 team that was ranked earlier on in this season and has a very veteran head coach in Chip Kelly who was able to make good adjustments in this matchup. So that coaching staff got beat. They'll learn. They will learn. They will improve. They will get better. What should give fans a ton of confidence is the performance of the individual players and the offense overall in this game. What they will do in the first half, you don't make the same schematic mistakes in the second half as a coaching staff. That first half performance looked like a Boise State team when you factor in the idea of a quarterback that can actually throw the ball downfield and you have that threat factor as well. You combine those ideas together and you have a Boise State team that could do something very, very special next year. So offensively for Boise State, it's a disappointing end to this game, thus an end to the season. But overall for Boise State, while their grade is middling because of that second half performance, this was a very, very strong offensive performance. And overall in this game, they put up 332 yards of offense, 117 yards passing, and over 200 yards rushing against a team, again, 215 yards rushing against a UCLA team that had kept their opponents to under 70 yards rushing a game this season. And they more than doubled that. That is a stat that you can hang your hat on and build on for next season. Now, defensively for Boise State, again, doing a little bit more of a wider scheme overall, looking at this overall picture, amazing first half, just like the offense, incredible first half. When I said the first half was almost a perfect performance for Boise State, it wasn't perfect. It was imperfection because they didn't end up putting the touchdowns in for 3 of those drives. For Boise State defensively, besides 1 drive, this was a perfect performance in the first half. They held UCLA to 7 points, 174 yards offense overall, 73 yards passing with 1 touchdown, and 101 yards rushing. And most of that yardage came on a couple of big scramble plays by the quarterback. So for Boise State in the first half, the things that they've struggled on, the things that have lost them games, they were winning at. Overall, they were stopping the quarterback. They let him go a little bit. Obviously he had he had a good game. Schlee starts this game, the rushing quarterback that Boise State has struggled against rushing quarterbacks. He has 83 yards rushing in the first half, but they're not allowing that yardage, that bending factor, to turn into touchdowns. Their secondary is having the best performance of any of the defense in this game in the first half. The secondary is what's getting UCLA off the field. The defensive line, linebackers are allowing some rushes here and there by the quarterback, but the secondary is getting Boise State's defense off the field in this one. Tubner on the first drive has a deep pass that's he deflects. Deep pass that he deflects, and a great coverage. Myron McCoy has a pick six in his hands that he drops. Again, you talk about this game. Boise State, I'm going to talk about it at the end, I think, but this game was very close to being something different because Myron McCoy had it pick six. There was nobody in front of him. He was at like the 40 to the 45 yard line. Nobody in front of him at all. The ball, he has had picks this year. He's been great in coverage overall in the second half of the season and has had some great interceptions. This would have been the easiest one of the entire year. The ball hit him in the chest. It was like he was the designated receiver. He clearly read the quarterback all the way. He jumps the route. It's in his hands, and he can see himself dancing in the end zone, and he dropped it. And that's why. I mean, too much field, too open, as you would talk about with a wide receiver. It was too easy. Sometimes it's good to force you to be a little bit more subconscious with your decision making as a football player, and have to focus on going and getting that catch and letting you're focusing on so many other things that you now have the subconscious take over and your skills just make the play. Well, in a situation like that where you're so wide open, you have such an easy, huge highlight reel play, you overthink it a little bit and you drop a perfect throw to him. I mean, a terrible throw by the quarterback, but a easy, perfect to him if he was the receiver throw that he ends up dropping. But the point there is the receiver was covered. McCoy made a great play. Tubner makes a great play on that first drive. Again, second drive of the half, Tubner again interacts with the wide receiver to influence another drop pass. You're going to hear his name a lot because he had an amazing game in this one. Alexander Tubner is by far the defensive player of the game. He had 12 tackles in this game, a pass defended. He had a great game overall in coverage, especially there in the first half. He impacted so many drives. In the fourth drive, Tubner and Oladipo combined together to stop what would have been a first down on a third down pass for UCLA. They combined together to force a 4th and 1. They stopped the receiver or the running back, whoever caught it, just short of the line of scrimmage. That 4th and 1, UCLA was setting up to go for it, and they have a false start. It forces them into a punt, sets up the touchdown drive for Boise State. Was so important for Boise State to have the defensive performance that they did in this one, and so important for Tubner and the defense and the secondary for Rodney Robinson, Tubner and McCoy to step up in the secondary and perform the way they did in this one, because that's what gave Boise State that 16-7 point lead. The secondary was winning this game for Boise State in the first half. In the last drive of the first half, same thing. Ty Benesfield has a great tackle on a third down screen, forces a long first down or a Hail Mary type situation, and Boise State is able to end the half with 0 points allowed on that drive, only 1 touchdown allowed by UCLA, and a 16-7 point game for Boise State coming into the second half. Now, before we move to the second half, I will address one thing real quick. Some fans, especially retrospectively with the loss, may be saying, why didn't we use any of our timeouts on that last drive for UCLA? Well, Boise State is the reason that they shouldn't have done what they did in the second half. But the reason that you don't use your timeouts there is because you don't have a passing game. Your offense is not set up for a 2-minute situation. You've scored on every drive so far. You have all the momentum. Your offense is riding on a high note. You just scored a touchdown the drive before. Maybe you come back out and get the ball back with 45 seconds or maybe a minute if you use the timeouts right. Maybe you get that ball back with right around a minute left, 45 seconds, and maybe Ashton Genty or George Holani busts out a big play. But more likely than not, you're going to be forced to down the ball with or punt the ball or something like that to end the half. UCLA is going to have time to prepare their own offense for you when you're burning those timeouts defensively, and your offense is going to have to come into half with UCLA having a little bit of momentum, knowing they were able to stop you once. UCLA has not proven that they can stop you from scoring in this game. Why put them in a situation where they feel like they can? That is why Boise State did not use their timeouts. It was a really, really smart decision by a coaching staff that made mistakes in this game. That was a right decision by the coaching staff. However, second half comes around, and Boise State, whereas the first half, the offensive first half, second half performance was a case of Boise State making the wrong adjustments and suffering the result of that. Defensively for Boise State, it wasn't so much that Boise State didn't make the right adjustments coming into the second half, it's just that UCLA did. UCLA made really good adjustments. So whereas the offensive faltering is a factor of Boise State making an adjustment that put themselves in a position that UCLA was able to easily stop. They adjusted themselves right into UCLA's open arms. In the second half, it's a case of the Boise State defense just not being able to adjust as well as the UCLA defense. UCLA made no adjustments in the second half defensively. Boise State just stopped doing what they were able to do to win this game. Defensively, Boise State tried to adjust, but UCLA adjusted much better. This UCLA offense was almost unstoppable in the second half. Boise State would have needed to have a strong first offensive performance in the second half to have long drives, limit the opportunities for UCLA to score, but anytime UCLA got out on that field, especially once they got momentum under their belt, they were scoring. And a big part of that is that their quarterback for the game, Schlee, goes out of the game and is injured. On the first drive of the second half, he has a long 44-yard run, is injured, and in steps Garbers. This was the quarterback that was my key player of the game for UCLA. This was the guy that most people thought that was going to start in this one. Garbers steps onto the field, and now it's a completely different team. UCLA is now punishing Boise State in the passing game. Because Garber's not the runner, but he has a great arm, and he looked like he should have been starting in this game. Ethan Garbers throws for 9 of 12 for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns, scrambles 3 times for 38 yards. Even though he was apparently banged up and not 100%, he still scrambles 3 times for 38 yards in this game. And Garbers comes in on that first drive, one of his first throws of the game. It wasn't his first one, it was like his second throw of the game, throws a touchdown. And from that point on, he was on. Yeah, that throw turned his fire on, and he was good to go from that point on. He had the confidence, the team rallied around him, and he had that off the bench feel. Even though he was supposed to be the starter, had been the starter at points this season, he had that off the bench vibe that throws a bowl game like this into chaos, and he brought that momentum and got this team back into it offensively. And at that point, Boise State, their biggest fault, because I think Garbers was going to beat them regardless. There was only one thing that Boise State could have done to beat this UCLA offense, and it's something that they chose not to do. You can understand why they didn't, because they want to be able to prove that they can stop them in a normal manner, that their players have made adjustments, that they can stop them with coverage. But what they should have done, the thing they didn't do, is blitz. They should have brought the house against Garbers on almost every single throw. Look, that's not the way to win a game in general. That's not the way to have a winning, successful formula for a defense in general. Yes, 3 to 4 blitzers is a good number on any play. You don't want to consistently bring more than that, because you're going to open yourself up for big chunk plays by the offense, and you're going to open yourself. It's hard to cover in zone every single play. That's not the winning formula. I'm not saying Boise State should switch their defense for the end of time to a blitz-only defense. But based on this roster, based on what you know they've been able to do or not do this year, you know that they are not going to be able to cover a guy for more than 3 seconds. They just can't. This Boise State secondary is too young, too inexperienced, missing that next level NFL star power that you had with Skinner and some of the other guys, Tyreek Jones, that you had on this defense. You're missing that next level star power in this secondary and all of that wealth of experience. This is one of the most inexperienced Boise State secondaries I've ever seen. And so while I think there's a lot of potential on here and they're going to get much better next year, this is not a Boise State secondary that's going to be able to come up against a UCLA Power 5 offense and stop them. They just aren't. The first half, they did a great job, but you also didn't have your passing quarterback out there. That's once your passing quarterback gets out on the field, they had Taylor Green out there in the first half for UCLA. Once the arm comes onto the field, a legitimate passing quarterback comes onto the field, you're not going to be able to stop them. And once they start proving that you can't stop them, you have to make the adjustments to do it. The only thing that the reason Boise State's defense has looked so good the last 3 games compared to the way they did the rest of the season is because they started becoming a blitzing team to make up for the roster inadequacies, for the deficiencies on this roster. They switched their offensive scheme to bring a much more consistent blitz. I'm not the only one to notice that. I called it out after the first game. BJ Rains commented on it, saying, yeah, he'd seen it as well. I was asking a question of, why he's flying back, and he said, hey, I'm flying back. If anybody wants to ask questions, I said, hey, why is Boise State blitzing more? Was it Avalos holding them back? Paraphrase basically what I said. And he said, I don't know why they're doing it, but they definitely seem to be blitzing much more consistently. And that's what Boise State did the last 3 games. That's why this secondary looked so good. Now, versus UNLV, they were able to match up a little bit better with a little bit less of a blitz focus. But overall, the reason that they have improved so much the back end of this season is because they have brought pressure much more consistently, which has forced these quarterbacks to making quick, bad decisions or to keep getting them flustered and not allowing these wide receivers to settle into their routes. And this Boise State secondary, they have that potential, that long-range potential to be really, really good. And so for now, they can cover a guy one-on-one for a few seconds, but they're not going to hold him forever. And if you allow a UCLA quarterback like this to pick you apart and give him time, he's going to do it. This is a guy that was injured, right? He's not 100%. He's not the running quarterback. He can scramble if it's wide open, but he's not the running quarterback. Bring the house on this guy. He's rusty. He's coming into the game off the bench. Yeah, he's just thrown a touchdown, but he's not fully in rhythm yet. Bring the house on this guy. Force him to be uncomfortable. Maybe he completes a lucky throw here and there. And yeah, you know what? He probably is going to complete the passes on this secondary. They might even give up a long touchdown. But he's going to score anyway. The end result, whether you blitz or you don't, is the end result is going to be a touchdown either way potentially. And the worst case scenario is that it's going to be the exact same result. But at least with the blitz, you have the potential to make a stop. You have the potential to get him out of rhythm, to get him taking hits, which is going to, a quarterback that's not 100% is going to rattle him, and he's going to potentially make that big game-changing mistake. He's going to throw an interception, he's going to take a long sack, and now he's going to be set up in a situation where Boise State secondary can drop back into coverage and hold them and get the ball back. That's what Boise State should have done. On the third drive, Boise State finally does that. They find drive number 3. They finally bring the house on 3rd and 8, force an incompletion, and force a punt. It was the only time really that they brought the house consistently throughout this. Coming into that point, that was the first time that they had brought the house and they forced a punt. Now, like I said, it doesn't always work. The next drive, Boise State brings the house and they get a deep touchdown. But it is much worse to have long, drawn-out, consistent drives that end in a touchdown than a quick flash touchdown that you don't drag your defense out, and your offense, which right now is just they're just revving right now. Their wheels are spinning and they keep stalling out, and they're trying to get back into this game. Get the ball back quickly to your offense, whether that's through a touchdown or a turnover. Give them a chance to not have to sit there and dwell on it and overthink it and come back onto this game and try and retake the momentum in the offense. The defensive scheme in this game was not going to work with coverage. You weren't going to beat them with coverage. He was still going to beat you, and he did, at least bringing a blitz. And Boise State tried to go to it way too late after it was already out of hand. At least with bringing the blitz, you have the potential, the option, the opportunity to make a big play and to get a stop. Eventually, UCLA, they pick up too much momentum, too much steam. Boise State's offense isn't performing well. The defense is starting to fall apart. They know that the entire game is on them. All of the pressure is now on them, and they just get pushed aside. Deep touchdown on drive number 5. On drive number 6, Boise State's just scored a touchdown. They're still within 2 scores. They could do this. They kick an onside kick that I don't love there. I would have preferred a longer kick and then give your defense a chance to make a big play and get the ball back to some field position to score and then go for the onside kick. But it didn't end up mattering because Boise State They were so beat down at this point that they still couldn't stop them. Even on a 3rd and 16, they allow a 20-yard scramble from the banged-up, gimpy quarterback, and he converts it, and UCLA drives, and ends up taking a knee outside the red zone, outside of the end zone to end the game there. And so defensively for Boise State, offensively there shouldn't be a ton of alarm bells going off. Defensively, there should be. The players are going to get better. We're going to bring in some new guys. The guys that have played this year, I think almost every single one of them are coming back. I mean, you're going to lose, some Dimitri Washingtons and that kind of thing, but the secondary players are all going to come back. They're going to be more experienced. They're going to be better next year. You're going to have great senior leadership on this defense. They're going to be much, much better next year. But what should continue to concern you is the decision making and the play calling defensively for this coaching staff. That is going to be the biggest question mark. That should be, I think, the biggest red flag for this team next year, because the offense, I think, is going to be fine. I think the offense is going to be fantastic. The defense is going to continue next season to be a major question mark if this coaching staff doesn't learn lessons that I thought they'd learned already after Avalos left and the defensive scheme changed. I thought they'd learned these lessons, but what we saw in the second half was the Boise State defense that we've seen this entire season, because those lessons somehow were unlearned. And so for Boise State defense in the second half, that should concern you, that those adjustments were decided to be made, and that after the game had gotten out of hand, first drive, second drive, they show they can beat you with coverage, that the decision points were not made to put Boise State in a position where they at least have a shot of winning this one defensively. So Boise State, overall defensive grade, F in the second half, A plus in the first half, equaling out to somewhere in the B minus range. I said I wasn't going to do another hour and 10 minute video, but here I am already at 51 minutes, so might as well push. For Boise State overall, offensively, I think a lot of potential positives to take away, especially considering that your quarterback wasn't playing in this game. Maddox Madsen for next year, or potential transfer, is going to bring a lot more to this offense. Defensively, though, for Boise State, they continue to be exposed, that they had continued to show inadequacies and deficiencies against a passing quarterback, passing team, and also decisions made that put Boise State in a bad decision. So kind of a first half, the offense, at least you know your personnel with the right play calling can win. The defense, you have a play calling problem and also a potential personnel problem as well. That both of those are going to have to be looked at and fixed for this team to put themselves not just in a Mountain West Championship type contention, but to have a chance of going after the biggest goal next year, which is a potential playoff spot. The defense is going to be a major question mark, and something that is going to have to be addressed over this offseason for Boise State to have success next year. Special teams, though, for Boise State, man, it's going to suck losing Jonah Dalmes. He has been incredible. 3 of 3 in this game for a long of 33 completed. His career as the best field goal kicker in Boise State history. He kept Boise State in this game. You'd love to see those drives end in touchdowns, but what an incredible feeling that will be missed until it's proven again by the next guy, and hopefully it is. What an incredible feeling to know that when your field goal kicker trots out there, if he's anywhere within 57 yards of that goalpost, he's going to get the ball in there, and there's no heart flutter. When he trots out there, at that point I'm just disappointed that we're having to kick the field goal, but as far as the field goal goes itself, there's no emotions, there's no fear, there's no worries, because I know it's going in. We all know, every person watching knows that ball is going through the uprights. Another incredible performance for him. And then James Ferguson Reynolds, someone who is coming back next year, and fans can be so excited about that, was not seen in the first half. Second half, unfortunately for the offense, he was, but what a great experience to be able to watch a player like this trot out in the field and get that opportunity to play. Fortunately for a punter, you don't want him to play, but when he does have to, when he is forced down on that field, he's going to put together an elite performance. And again, we saw that in this game. 4 punts, 51.8 yard average, long of 56, another 50-yard average punting for James Ferguson Reynolds. There are not enough good things in the world that can be said about the best punter in America. And James Ferguson Reynolds proved in this game, like he has every game this season, but proved again in this game that he should have won the Ray Guy Award for best punter in America. I'm just going to leave it at that. Incredible performance again by James Ferguson Reynolds. Overall notes for the return team, allowed a long punt return in the second half. I think that was just part of that momentum swing away from Boise State. They were putting a lot of pressure on the punt. James Ferguson Reynolds doing a great job getting those long punts away, even with the pressure in his face. I think on that one punt, he outkicked his coverage just a little bit. Not something he's consistently done this year. Not something he's really done at all this year. But on that specific play, I think he did outkick his coverage just a little bit. There was a man down there to make the tackle, but once he missed, there really wasn't any safety net behind him. And they allowed a long punt return, which was luckily pulled back by some block in the back or holding or something by the defense. Some other notes that didn't end up impacting the game, but you call a timeout for a punting formation. You don't want to see that. Again, kind of young coaching staff making mistakes. That's not where you want to burn a timeout. Boise State carried 2 timeouts into the half, so it didn't end up mattering. And an onside kick with 5 minutes, 8 seconds left. That's questionable for me. It didn't end up mattering because Boise State couldn't stop them anyway, but you'd rather see them kick it away with that much time left and all their timeouts. Maybe a better game decision that could be impactful down the road, and something this coaching staff should, I think, look at and learn from for next year. Overall, solid A performance for the special teams unit. So finally here, grading Boise State's keys, my keys to the game for Boise State. Nothing changes. This is normal. Boise State came out and dominated on this field. They looked like the better team. Gronk called them the better team. He said that this fan base was better than UCLA's fan base and that there were more of them there and they were louder. They stole the spotlight in that first half and they looked like the team that belonged. So A+ performance. Fortunately, things happened in the second half that took that away a little bit, but they looked like they belonged on this stage. So A+ performance. Run, and run again. I've covered it in depth, and I'm not going to hit it again, but solid F overall. I mean, first half, it's an A. Second half, it's an F. And because the decision not to do what worked so well in the first half cost Boise State the game, even though they fulfilled this key perfectly in the first half, I'm going to give it an F because the decision to go away from that lost them the game in this one. And then final trick plays. Boise State didn't run any. They ran a few schematic things to kind of shift the eyes away. It'd be a little tricky with it, like some of those tight end screens. You don't necessarily expect that. But there weren't any true trick plays in this one. And the playbook overall was definitely much dumbed down for this game. And you understand that with C.J. Tiller being a young quarterback. But, man, you think about the guy who's got probably the most experience on this team and is a former quarterback himself, Riley Smith. He came to Boise State as a quarterback. He converted to tight end. We never got to see him throw a pass after he converted to tight end. I thought that's what was going to happen. When he converted to tight end, I thought that we were going to see a couple opportunities where he throws the ball deep, on a throw back and then a throw forward. He was on the receiving end of a couple of those, but we never got to see him. It would have been exciting to see him have that opportunity to end his super senior season, his time at Boise State that way. Would have been great to see, but would have been great to see some form of trick plays because Boise State desperately needed a spark in that second half, and throughout this game, they desperately needed something different to put the ball in a position where UCLA was not expecting it. Those screens, you're being a little tricky, but UCLA is expecting that ball to be inside the 10-yard line for the pass. They're expecting that. They may not be expecting it in that way, but they are expecting the ball to be in front of them there. You use some kind of trick play that gets the ball deep for Boise State, gets the defenders in a position where they may be a little bit weaker and Boise State's fast wide receivers can take advantage of it. That would have been great. Boise State needed to do that. They've shown the ability to run those trick plays. They didn't in this game. It's unfortunate. Going to be an F overall, and I think something that contributed to Boise State ended up losing this game in the end. So final thoughts on this one. I've kind of tied in the 2024 reasons and what this game means for that. But my final thoughts on this one is, and maybe something that helps you sleep a little bit better thinking about this game, the final score for this game was 22-35. But if 3 field goals are 3 touchdowns, if a pick 6 is returned for a touchdown and not dropped, if a 2-point conversion attempt is not needed and Boise State can go out and kick an extra point, then in the final drive, UCLA is driving to get to overtime. They're playing for overtime. They're not driving to go down and take a knee because the score is 42-35 Boise State. And with longer drives for Boise State, if they do some things differently in the running game, they probably win this one. And so, it's all ifs and nuts and coconuts, that kind of thing. We'll all be having a Merry Christmas or whatever. But the point is that this game is 22-35. Boise State played really well versus this Pac-12 team. They matched up really well versus this program. And fans should have a lot of positives to take away. They should have positives offensively, defensively, and special teams. Boise State did things in the first half defensively that they haven't done all year and performed really, really, really well. Their best defensive performance of the entire season against an offense of this caliber. And offensively for Boise State throughout this game, they had some great moments, especially in that first half. And then the special teams, James Ferguson Reynolds is going to get even better next year as a junior, and that's just absolutely crazy considering what he's able to do this season. And so we've addressed the negatives, we've looked at the negatives, and we've debriefed them. But now we move forward to looking into 2024, and we look at the positives that this team can build on. There are so many, bowl games are launching platforms for the next year, and there is so much right now that Boise State has been able to establish as a platform for them to launch from for next year. Do they have a lot of hurdles they have to clear out of the way and build over? Yes, of course they do. I'm going to cover all of those in depth. I'm not going to just sweep away and ignore the negatives. All of those will be covered in depth in my 2024 preview series that will be coming out over the spring/summer with former players like I have done the last 2 seasons. I'm already setting up that lineup and I'm excited for it. So make sure you like and subscribe because the videos don't end right now. But of course there's negatives to be covered and those will be covered, but there are also so many positives to be taken out of this game and this season that looked like it was going to be one of the biggest negatives ever in Boise State FBS history. Turns out to be a hugely positive season with a lot of hope now for 2024 versus the thought process of, do we even have a chance? Is it just going to be more of the same? It's not. It's going to be a different team. It's going to be a different staff. It's going to be different players in some key positions. And the players that have succeeded and played well this year are coming back and going to be getting even better next year. So for next season, for 2024, because somebody put out on Twitter that they were sad that the football season was ending, and they were bemoaning the fact that there's so much time in between the beginning and end of the season. But I said the football season never ends if you never stop talking about it. And so 2023, that football season is over. Welcome to 2024. 2024 football season has begun. All of your Boise State coverage, all of your previews for the season, all of the reviews for this season, I'll be doing some kind of review, your spring game coverage, your signing day coverage, anything Boise State football that is important, that is going on out there, is all going to be covered on this channel. Again, I'm going to have former players coming on to help me preview next season. So thank you so much for being part of the 4th year of the Boise State football channel so far. It's been an incredible ride, an incredible journey through not just this year, but the 4 years leading up. I cannot wait to see what the 5th year for the channel looks like next season as we now enter into 2024. And I cannot wait to see what Boise State is able to do on the field, because every single year is a great year when you're a Boise State football fan. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue!